If you work with contracts, reports, or PDFs, you're spending 80% more time than necessary. Still reading line by line? By the end of this video, you'll know the one document AI tool that's already doing the work you're still doing manually, and how to start using it today. Here's what's actually happening right now. While you're highlighting PDFs and copying notes into spreadsheets, there's an entire class of professionals who stopped doing that 6 months ago. They're using document AI that reads faster than you, remembers better than you, and cross-references things you'd never catch. And the gap is widening every week. These aren't early adopters gambling on experimental tools anymore. These are accountants, attorneys, researchers, and executives who realized that manual document review has become a competitive liability. They've already moved on, and they're not looking back. Dr. Kai Meridian told me something last that made my stomach drop. He said most people don't realize they're competing against augmented humans now, not just AI. A lawyer with document AI isn't just 10% faster. She's processing 50 contracts in the time it used to take her to process 5. And she's finding precedents and conflicts that would take a junior associate weeks to uncover. An analyst with the right tool isn't just finding insights quicker. He's finding patterns that were invisible before, connections between data sets that would require 3 people and a month of cross-referencing to spot manually. You're not falling behind AI. You're falling behind the humans who partnered with it first. And they're building a lead that gets harder to close every single day. The opportunity here is bigger than saving time. It's about seeing things you literally cannot see right now. When you read a 100-page report, you catch maybe 70% of what matters. You miss the contradiction on page 43 that conflicts with page 12. You don't notice the subtle pattern across 6 different documents. You don't catch the terminology shift that happens halfway through that signals a change in scope or liability. Your brain isn't wired for that kind of total recall and instant cross-referencing. Document AI is. And the people using it right now, they look like they have superpowers to everyone's still doing it the old way. They're answering questions in minutes that used to require days of research. They're catching risks before they become problems. This isn't coming. It's here. And if you're still manually reviewing documents, you're not just slower. You're operating with less information than your competition. Let me show you what this looks like in real life. Maya Chen works in compliance for a mid-size healthcare company. 6 months ago, her job was drowning her. She'd spend entire afternoons reading vendor contracts, checking them against regulatory requirements, flagging inconsistencies. It was tedious, exhausting, and terrifying. Because one missed clause could cost her company hundreds of thousands of dollars. She'd go home with her eyes burning from screen glare, knowing she still had a backlog growing faster than she could clear it. She told me about this one week in October. 42 contracts landed on her desk. All of them needed review before Friday. Normally, she could handle maybe 10 contracts a week if she worked fast and skipped lunch. She was staring at 4 times her capacity, and there was no one to help. Her manager was sympathetic, but the deadline was non-negotiable. That's when her colleague mentioned Claude with document analysis. Not as a replacement, as a reading partner. Here's what she did. She uploaded the first contract, a 37-page vendor agreement, dense with legal language and nested clauses. Then she asked Claude a simple question. What are the key obligations, payment terms, and liability clauses in this document? In 90 seconds, Claude gave her a structured summary that would have taken her 40 minutes to extract manually, organized by category with page references for everything. But here's where it got interesting. She asked a follow-up question. Compare this contract's liability cap to the previous 5 vendor contracts we've signed. Claude pulled the pattern instantly. This new vendor had a liability cap 3 times higher than their standard. It was buried in Section 8, subsection C, using slightly different language than usual, phrased as an indemnification ceiling rather than a liability limit, which is why the terminology didn't trigger her usual mental flags. Maya had almost missed it. If she'd been reading manually, skimming under deadline pressure, she probably would have. That one catch alone justified everything. She didn't stop there. She asked Claude to flag any language that conflicted with their company's standard terms, to identify clauses that might conflict with HIPAA requirements, to summarize the termination conditions across all 42 contracts so she could see which ones had problematic exit terms. She asked it to pull out every auto-renewal clause and tell her which ones required advance notice to cancel. Each query took seconds and returned results that would have taken her hours to compile by hand if she'd even thought to look for those specific patterns. By Wednesday, she'd processed all 42 contracts. Work that should have taken 4 weeks took her 3 days. But the time savings wasn't even the main thing. She told me she caught 7 issues she would have missed. 7 moments where I noticed something her tired human brain would have scrolled past. A pricing escalation clause tied to an index she'd never heard of. A jurisdiction specification that conflicted with company policy. A data retention requirement that was going to be a nightmare for their IT team. Here's the shift Maya described. Before, reading documents felt like running on a treadmill. Exhausting effort, same place. Now it feels like she's got peripheral vision she didn't have before. She reads a contract, but Claude is reading it with her, catching the things that hide in plain sight, remembering every detail from every previous document without fatigue or distraction. She's not slower than the AI. She's amplified by it. She's making better decisions because she's working with more complete information. She's the expert. Claude is the tireless research assistant who never needs coffee. 3 months later, her manager asked how she was keeping up with the increased workload. Maya just smiled. She'd been handling 40% more contracts than before and leaving work on time. The people around her still doing manual review were drowning, staying late, begging for deadline extensions. She was surfacing patterns they couldn't see, catching problems they didn't know existed. That's not a competitive advantage. That's a different game entirely. Here's what you're going to do in the next 5 minutes. Open Claude. Not later. Right now. Take one document you need to analyze this week. A contract, a report, a research paper, anything dense you've been dreading. Upload it. Then ask Claude one question. Summarize the 3 most important points in this document and flag anything that seems unusual or contradictory. That's it. One document, one question. Watch what happens. You're not replacing your judgment. You're adding a reading partner who never gets tired, never skims, and catches the details you miss when you're on your 5th hour of document review. See how it feels. See what it finds. Then ask yourself, what would the last 6 months have looked like if you'd been working this way the whole time? The ones who adapt first will own the next decade.